I'd like to
he
call to
told
order
me-
November 15,
told you to be good
2016
after
meeting
the
of the Sayreville Board of
diplomas.
Education. Can everybody please stand and join me in the pledge?
Not that.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there going to be an attorney?
Yes, supposed to be.
I want to add something. Attorney liability, contract, whatever.
Just ask.
Okay,
When
just
we should read the
ask. I
resolution.
just thought about it.
Okay, Madam Board Secretary, this meeting has been advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act.
Yes, it has.
A roll call, please.
Mr. Balca?
Here.
Mrs. Batco?
Here.
Mr. Bashada?
Here.
Mrs. Bloom?
Here.
Mr. Syak?
Here.
Mrs. DePinto?
Here.
Mr. Esposito?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. McAgnone?
I am present.
Mr. President, I move for executive session.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay, can you please read the resolution to go into executive? And I think Mrs. Bacco may want to add one category, but go ahead and say it first
Okay.
if you don't cover it.
Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975 permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Borough of Sayreville, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of and action upon the hereinafter specified subject matters. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Personnel, including but not limited to agenda items, matters falling under attorney-client privilege. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists. This resolution shall take effect immediately.
Did you mention personnel?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Everything's
didn't
covered
I?
then. Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Okay, everything's covered. Just roll call.
Mr. Balca?
Yes.
Mrs. Batco?
Yes.
Mr. Bashada?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. McAgnone?
Yes, the board will go into executive, we'll reconvene in public at 7:30. I'd like to call to order November 15, 2016 meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education. Everybody please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Board Secretary, this meeting has been advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act.
Yes, it has.
Very good. Roll call, please.
Mr. Balca?
Here.
Mrs. Batco?
Here.
Mr. Bashada?
Here.
Mrs. Bloom?
Here.
Mr. Syak?
Here.
Mrs. DePinto?
Here.
Mr. Esposito?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. McAgnone?
I am present. Can you give us a little synopsis of what we discussed in executive?
Personnel, including but not limited to agenda items and matters falling under attorney-client privilege.
Our student council representative, Mrs. Zachary Corby, what's going on campus?
Let's see. Recently, we had Halloween, so everyone dressed up. We had some really good costumes in the school, so that was a lot of fun. We took our quarterlies, which was a week. A little stressful for some people. It's a little better this year. I don't know if you guys made it or who made it, but it's only 15% of our quarter grade instead of 20. So I think that 5% really did help us out a little bit. I still get some mixed reviews on if they're better than midterms and finals or what's what, but I think I like quarterlies better personally. We started a food drive to collect food for Thanksgiving between Student Council, SAD, and FBOA, so it's great to see three very involved and active clubs all coming together. And something I wanted to brag about personally is I'm very involved with FBLA, and last year we had 86 students in FBLA, and this year we have 188.
Wow.
So, excellent. Very excited to kick that off. Upcoming, we're trying to plan a movie night where an entrance fee would be a toy for Christmas to help out with a toy drive. FBLA and DECA, our two business clubs, have their regional events coming up. We started planning for a winter pep rally. We sent our proposal in to Mr. Brown. We have a big game on Friday for football. They won last week. We play Middletown South this week. And winter sports are starting soon.
As always, excellent briefing. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Corby?
Just to our business administrator, we probably should plan budgetarily for some victories with regard to FBLA because that involves a lot of travel, and we've had a great deal of success in the past with 88 students, so the fact that we're now double that, start finding money in the budget.
We have 73 people signed up for states already this year, and I think it was something like, I want to say like 40, in the 40s last year for states, 73 this year so far. And if they win in regionals, they get a bid to states. So probably we're shooting to try and double that as well.
That's a good problem.
That is a good problem to have, yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Dr. Labby, you have a presentation.
Yes, I do, Mr. McDonald. Thank you. Can you hear me? Yep. We've spoken about this on many occasions. One of the things that brings the greatest amount of joy to myself, as well as our Board of Education members, is when we have the opportunity to recognize, honor, and thank our incredible staff and students on the many accomplishments that they achieve throughout the year. And we have some very special young ladies here and their coach that we would like to recognize, honor, and thank you so much for the way in which you've represented Sayreville. And to assist me with this, I'd like to ask Mr. Walsh to come join me up here.
Okay, thank you. It's my honor to congratulate the varsity tennis team. Tennis takes a lot of heart, a lot of mental toughness, a lot of hard work, especially becoming a champion. Arthur Ashe said, one important key to success is self-confidence. An important key to self-confidence is preparation. And I know Coach Provenza well. I work with him, and I know how hard he works, and I know how prepared he had his team. I know how hard he pushes you guys, and that says a lot about why you're champions. Billie Jean King said, champions keep playing until they get it right. Well, you guys got it right. You prepared, you worked hard, and that's why you were the Coach of the Year. I'd like Coach Provenza, Mike Provenza, come on up here. I'm going to let Coach Provenza call his team out, and I'll hand the certificates.
Okay, there we go. Okay, we have Kathleen Bednar coming up. Okay, next we have Gino Desai. Okay, next, Captain Ankitha Dinwiddle. Grace Ebke. Mansi Gold. Hira Hashmi. Liana Masankai. Akansha Nagapuri. Nirali Patel. Alicia Richardson. Trusty Sheck.
Kate Sudel. Swara Chef. And Captain Jasmine Van Diller. Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about this team. I'll tell you, this was an amazing season. This is such a memorable moment for me. This is a group of girls that are so resilient. They try so hard. And we had a lot of ups and downs in this season. And when we lost our first match, we looked at each other after a little bit of motivation, a little bit of tough talk, and we said we probably shouldn't have lost that match. And the girls agreed with me. And they said, so to prove it, we're never going to lose again. And that's exactly what we did. We went on an 8-0 run to capture the title, and we won a lot of close matches, 3-2, and in tennis, it's all about getting 3 points out of 5. So to get that third point, it really took a lot of heart, a lot of mental stability, and just mental toughness. And these girls are not only great on the tennis courts, they're great in the classroom, they represent Sayreville to the highest level, so I'm proud to be their coach, and I'm proud that they're champions. Thank you.
Hey, Mom and Dad, we also want to thank you and congratulate you. How much?
You ever try to play tennis?
Uh-huh.
Nobody ever hits it to you. You gotta,
You're supposed to go chase the ball.
it's not fun.
It's not fun?
Yeah, hit it and it goes too far or it doesn't. Hey, I like the way you do that with the quotes and everything.
You ready?
Yeah, like a ham, man.
Say, there you go.
So you got all the sports stuff. Sports stuff.
Huh?
Congratulations and thank you again. GMC Life.
All right.
Okay, so parents and players, this is that awkward moment where you have a chance to escape while we walk around the meeting.
It's going to get real boring now. Just a little girl here, is she on the tennis team? What? Is she on the tennis team?
She was, yeah. They do.
Are you on the tennis team?
I love that shirt.
So cute.
I like the color. Did she pick it? At that age but she's done it. The other one?
That's okay. Okay, now let's get to the boring part of the meeting. Everybody should have gotten the monthly technology and monthly maintenance work order reports. If anybody has any questions, please let our BA know. Also, the minutes were posted for the regular executive session of our meeting on November 1st. Anybody have any questions, additions, deletions to the minutes? If not, I'll accept the motion to accept and file them.
So moved.
Second the motion.
Okay, Mrs. Bloom and Mr. Syak, I need a roll call vote.
Mr. Balka?
Yes.
Mrs. Batco?
Yes.
Mr. Bashada?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
And Mr. McAdoo?
Yes. Dr. Labby, your report, sir.
Thank you, sir. If I can bring your attention now to the superintendent's report. If you can find your way to page 3, beginning with item number 13 through 18, plus item number 20. We're asking to approve several building permits, some for fee in accordance with the district use of facilities fee schedule. That use of facilities on item number 20 is in accordance with our fee schedule. It wasn't noted there, but we'll be following our fee schedule for that. We do have, we're asking to approve some student trips with transportation costs on pages 4 through 5. Number 21, we're asking to retroactively approve a private out-of-district extended school year tuition contract for a student with a disability, paraprofessional services for students in an out-of-district school, interpreting services, and unfortunately bedside tutoring for 3 students who are currently hospitalized, as well as paraprofessional services for an in-district student participating in the Fall Unified Sports Team. By the way, with that note, Board of Education members, you're in the area on Thursday. We will have our Bombers Unified Indoor Soccer Tournament here at the high school, beginning at 2:30, with our high school students, followed by our middle school students at about 3:35, and their elementary students at 4:40. Any questions on Vision 2030 finance and infrastructure? I have a typo slide there, taken off there. Seeing none, move forward. Vision 2030 student achievement, we have, we're asking approve of a co-curricular trip and activities. We have 2 items there, 1 co-curricular trip and 1 activity. You can find that on page 6. Any questions or comments on that? Seeing none, I'll move forward. Personnel. Now, at the last meeting, I did not have the write-up that I wanted to have. As you know, at our last meeting, you accepted the retirement of Joanne Remite. She's a 3rd grade teacher at the Eisenhower Elementary School, and I'd like to say a few words on her behalf. Whether you were lucky enough to have a student in Miss Farley's class or just lucky to have had your child in her class as Mrs. Remite, Joanne has been an inspiration, educator, friend, and advocate to students for the last 33 years, 32 of those years as a teacher at the Dwight D. Eisenhower Elementary School. Mrs. Remite has worked under 5 different superintendents and 5 different principals. She has taught kindergarten, 1st grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and basic skills. Gifted in her ability to reach and teach struggling students with the prerequisite skills necessary to succeed in math, Mrs. Remite worked with our most at-risk students for 15 years as a basic skills teacher. Having students successfully transition out of her basic skills class was the best reward Joanne could ever receive, and she was rewarded often throughout those years. A recipient of the Teacher of the Year Award in 1999, Joanne has also displayed the level of skill, determination, and dedication for her classes and her students every year before and certainly every year after she was recognized as Teacher of the Year in 1999. Her retirement leaves a large void in the district and especially at the Eisenhower School, where she has greeted students, parents, and staff for such a long period of time. The faculty and staff will miss her greatly, and we look forward to hearing about her new adventures as she embarks on the next stage of her life. Once again, we'd like to congratulate, commend, and wish Mrs. Remite all the best in her upcoming retirement. Moving ahead on Vision 2030 personnel, number 1, we're asking you to approve several leave of absences. You can find those on pages 6 and 7. Numbers 2 through 4 and 11, we're asking you to hire 1 tenure track teacher, 2 replacement teachers, and 3 bus drivers, and 1 lunchroom playground aide for the 2016-17 school year. And you can find that on page 7 as well as on the addendum.
Items number 5 and 6, we're asking to approve the head coach for the Sayreville War Memorial High School girls bowling team, the winter athletic aide, and 2 winter unpaid coaching aides for obviously this school year, and you can find that on page 8. Number 7, we're asking to approve teachers to work on an as-needed basis in the Math Academy. You can find that on page 8. Numbers 9 and 12, which can be found on page 9, and the addendum, we're asking to approve a substitute teacher as well as a substitute custodian for this school year. And number 10, we're asking to approve professional days, and you can find them all on page 9. Any questions or comments on Vision 2030 personnel?
Dr. Labby, I have a question. On page 7, we have some non-tenured positions to fill in, and I see we're prorating their salaries based upon what they would be if they were tenured. I thought that when we had substitutes, there's 3 tiers. We have a substitute that would come in for X amount of dollars for just to watch the class. Then we have a second tier that would come in and do a little bit more. And then the third tier, which would be teaching for an extended period of time. Wouldn't these temporary people that we have for like a month, 2 months, 3 months fit into that third tier, not being prorated?
No, as a district, we have actually extended contract to any teachers that are going to sustain their job duties for more than 3 months. What we do is we basically have the lowest tier for substituting is without a certificate, and it's $85, I believe, a day. Then with a certificate on a per diem basis, it's $95 a day.
Right.
And then any teacher that is certified and is going to be in a position for more than 20 days, but less than 3 months, we offer $125 a day.
That's the 60 credits, am I correct?
Well, no,
No, it's a teacher.
You have to be certified in that particular discipline. You cannot substitute in a particular classroom for more than 20 days without a certification in that area.
Okay.
So if you're going to be with us more than 20 consecutive days and you're certified, but you're going to be with us less than 3 months, we'll pay you $125 a day. But if you're going to be with us over 3 months, we contract.
See, because you brought that up. There's one here that's for 2 months, and you have her prorated.
Well, because she actually started on September 1st, on September 6th. We were paying her $125, but what happened was the teacher extended her leave. And once the teacher, this person's actually going to be working for almost 5 months with us.
So 3 months?
I would not go back further than when I got the teacher's notice that she was extending her leave.
So from 3 months beyond, we do the prorated.
Yeah, we do the program.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I like this agenda.
I knew you'd be happy, sir.
This is nice.
Mr.
Any other
McEnone?
questions or comments?
No, I have 2 questions for Erwin on the bill list. Check number 138435, it's the Borough of Sayreville for security coverage, amount $75,000. Is this for the SRO officers that we have in the district? We're paying 25 towards one and then 50 towards the other. We'll have to pay another 25 for the second SRO officer, am I correct? Because it's 50 each.
It's 50 each, but we owed the money from last year as well, because that was a deferred payment.
Okay.
So for the middle school, they've only billed us the 25,000, so we're only paying that 25,000. Then the second half of the year, they'll bill us again, it'll be another 75,000.
Okay, I have another question. Let me get the page here. Check number 138461, DEH Direct Energy Businesses, or business. Is this a, how can I explain it? Like with Jersey Central, they have a plan that they provide. I'll wait until you get to that. You need that check number again?
I'm sorry, you said 461?
Yes. 138461, D Direct Energy Business.
Oh, yes, Direct Energy, yes.
Okay, is that similar to what Jersey Central has, where one company supplies the rating of the power and then they bill us for it?
Yes.
Would it be something to look into? Is this the Jersey Central or is this the public service entity?
I'm not sure, I'd have to check for you.
I would ask to look that maybe it would be cheaper just to eliminate them, and it may be cheaper just to deal with the energy supplier directly, and we'll probably save money. Because rates have
have-
changed.
I'll look into it.
Okay. And then the last one I have is check number 138496. Okay, the question I have here, that is a private charter school in East Brunswick, if I'm correct. I talked to Jonathan about this earlier. One of the issues that I have is that I can see a charter school being a charter school, but when we're sending students to a religious charter school, it kind of bothers me because it brings the question of religion and state into the picture.
They're a recognized charter school by the Department of Education.
I know Jonathan mentioned there's something happening between Highland Park, who he represents also in this particular facility. You know, I brought this up years ago, you know, because of the fact that, you know, again, it's a religious function, and I'll give you an example. I mentioned to our previous business administrator, and I said, you know, could I send one of my kids to school there if I, and he kind of laughed at me because it's a segregated religious facility.
How could the state sanction a charter school to take public funds for public students if it has a religious affiliation? They couldn't.
Tom, I don't think it is. I think because they teach Hebrew, they kind of draw that, you know, those
That
students,
demographic.
Jewish, that demographic, thank you. But it's not a recognized religious school. It's not. I'm pretty familiar with it. That's why I'm saying.
The reason I
I'm
ask that is
relatively sure.
because, like I said, the previous business administrator, I won't mention his name, he kind of laughed at when I asked him about, you know,
Right,
a non-faith
yes.
of that particular faith could get into that school, and he laughed.
There are non-faith of that kind in that school. There are. No, there
No,
are,
I-
just being serious.
No, I know, I just don't want to, you know,
No, I understand. No, it's a good point. And when you look at it at face value, it looks like it's a religious institution, but
And
I'm
that was a
pretty sure
big,
it
that was a
isn't.
big fight years ago, 'cause I know someone
Yeah.
very well who's on the East Brunswick Board of Education. And the state came in, went to court, and it's legitimate. And,
It is,
you know,
yeah.
If it's a state-recognized charter school, you have to
yeah,
recognize
because the
it,
state has a
period.
significant checklist to go through to get that blessing, so, no pun intended.
all right, thank you.
Gotcha. Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll open up the public for any questions or comments on the agenda items. I will open up again to the public for any business that may come before this board. Anybody have any questions or comments on the agenda items that was just discussed? Seeing none, I'll close the public portion, accept the motion to accept and file the superintendent's report.
So moved. Second.
Okay, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Balco?
Yes.
Mrs. Batco?
Yes.
Mr. Bashada?
Yes,
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. McAgnone?
Yes. Okay, was there any committees meeting between the last meeting and this meeting? None, right?
Finance met and Buildings and Grounds met
Building
too.
Was that?
Finance and Buildings and Grounds both met, so.
Okay, anything you want to talk to us about?
Yeah, we just we reviewed 3 bond refunding proposals and are planning to move forward with Acacia Financial, and we're also looking at the cost of the bond council.
Okay.
On the transportation side, we're trying to eliminate as many single routes as possible. We discussed cost-saving options like changing the courtesy busing from 0.7 of a mile to 1 mile for elementary schools. Also, another option could be changing sample start time to the same as the middle school. We discussed expanding the bus fleet and are examining its benefits and looking at its storage problem it would create. We reviewed a scoreboard advertising contract and had concerns about the length of the contract and the percentages they want to collect based on it, so that's for something Dr. Lively's will look further into, I think, unless he wants some more discussion tonight about it, I'm not sure.
About,
Scoreboard advertising?
Scoreboard advertising.
oh, scoreboard advertising. They are going to be getting back to us with regard to the one problem that we had with the contract. It's a 10-year
10-year.
contract. I know that I've already sent that to our attorneys to examine as well.
10 years?
And the 50%, you were also concerned about the 50%
And
split.
50%, they would take half of the revenue generated through the advertising. I've actually been trying to set up a conference call for them to attend our next Finance Committee meeting,
Good.
as we discussed.
Good.
Just a clarification, are we looking at additional scoreboards? I mean, we're not
No, no.
touching the
Not
wellness
touch- it's
scoreboard,
to be
correct?
advertising around the outside of. the
What they do
perimeter.
is they.
Oh, this would be the perimeter.
Without
What
touching the
what they
scoreboard
do is
itself.
they go out and solicit advertisers, and they, out of their own pockets, they construct a sign, and then out of their own pockets, they install the sign
to our scoreboard without harming our scoreboard.
Gotcha.
The question we have is the 10-year agreement with them, and first of all, are we allowed to enter a 10-year agreement with anyone? Or is the 10-year agreement with the specific advertiser? All advertising would have to be board approved in order to do it, but let's say, for instance, we entered into an agreement with Coca-Cola. Are we locked into 10 years with Coca-Cola? And what happens if there's some form of scandal that goes on with Coca-Cola and we're stuck with them on our scoreboard? So that's one of the concerns that we expressed.
Okay, that's good, that's a good concern. Okay.
We also reviewed the excess surplus calculation that the auditors are working on and are going to recommend transferring $500,000 from surplus to capital reserve.
Okay, good job, thank you.
Tom has his report too.
Buildings and grounds,
Oh.
we had the meeting. Water testing for lead, evidently we're good. We're going to have people trained to do the synopsis for the water testing, how it's done, and make sure it meets the state requirements. The issue with the cave-in or trench between the middle school and the high school, work is going to commence on that after we have some insurance info straightened out. The school windows, the windows for this middle school has been awarded. We're ordering the windows. There's a hot water heater here in the high school that's been replaced. It's a different hot water heater, which I found out. It's not like our home hot water heaters, you know, like a 50 or a 60 gallon. It's 100.
Tankless, right?
It's got all kinds of controls on it. It's a special, and it's expensive. That one's, we have another one that's is in a process of going to have to be replaced also.
They replacing them with tankless water heaters?
No, the cost on that is
It's much more.
prohibitive. We're talking about LED lighting in the auditorium and the football stadium, which will probably be something we'll have to look at budgetary. There's a problem in Wilson in room 6 with some tiles that we're going to fix as soon as possible. We're going to clean a path out behind Samsel for a walking access to Samsel for the students that are necessary. Truman, the doors at Truman, we're getting quotes for each door and at each school and at the Sayreville Middle School. We had an issue with the pickup truck that was ready to be scrapped, and the borough stepped in and worked with our people and fixed the floor in it so the truck is usable again instead of buying another vehicle. We're doing electrical upgrades for the servers here in the building. We talked about a suppression system. As we mentioned, and right now the suppression system is water. And if you use water on top of our servers, you can kiss them all goodbye if God forbid something happens. So we're going to put either a halon or another type of suppression system in there, which has been okayed by our fire marshal.
Good.
And the bus storage that we've talked about earlier, and we're doing the phone and VDI implementation, which is, it's a slow process, but it's going to work out.
Good, thank you, Mr. Bashad.
And just to update a little bit, they actually started work today. Was it Monday? They started work on the trench at the middle school.
Nothing from the New Jersey School Boards?
A few things.
Oh.
The delegate assembly will be coming up in December. I will be out of town. Mrs. Bloom has volunteered to represent the board if the board is okay with that. I know Mr. Bashada has done it in the past. I didn't think he would mind having Mrs. Bloom handle it on a Saturday morning.
She would be perfect representing.
Watch for the deer.
There you go.
I already registered.
So
The
she'll be
deer will
taking
have to
care
watch for me.
of that piece. I had a chance to go out to Denver to prepare for the national conference. It was interesting while I was there meeting with the conference team. A group of 2,000 people went by the hotel chanting, "Not my president." The conference team assured me they weren't referring to me. That was a little reassuring. But on a serious note with that, what we have seen nationally is a significant uptick in HIB issues, student protests in public schools, et cetera, related to the presidential election. And that's something that's happening across the country. So we just might want to be mindful of that, both from an HIB standpoint and a prevention standpoint. Along those same lines, we're also ramping up because with a Republican Congress, with a Republican president who has made it very clear that he supports school vouchers, he supports school choice, charter schools, et cetera, we could see a very different national conversation regarding public education and the implementation of ESSA. So National School Boards is preparing its strategy because we believe if a charter school is going to exist, that it should be only with the authorization of the community's local school board. So we're preparing our strategy with regard to that.
Good luck with that.
Which, and listen, there are a few out there that actually do exist with the authorization of the school board. Our hope is that that will actually be a legal requirement.
Good luck. Okay, that it? Okay. First on discussion, I'd like to congratulate Mrs. Bloom, Mr. Balka, and Mr. Walsh for their reelection, and I personally look forward to continuing to work with you on the Board of Ed. On December 20th meeting, I sent an email to everybody that we're going to have a special presentation by Sergeant Johnson, who's a member of the New Jersey School Board Association, on high steam, which should be pretty interesting. I sent him an email, gave him all the specifics, asked what kind of technology he needed. He had not gotten back to me, so I'm going to follow up tomorrow with another email to him to make sure he got that information. He said definitely the 20th was good, so I just wanted to confirm some things. So that should be a pretty good presentation. He's a pretty dynamic speaker, and I think you all are going to be pretty impressed on the technology that they're using and how we can probably latch on to some of those assets for our STEM program here. So looking forward to that. Anything else for discussion before I open up to the public so that we can get out of here? Yes, Dr. Lau.
Just on the discussion of charter schools, some of the superintendents in Middlesex County as well as Monmouth County are very concerned. There's a high probability that a charter school will be opening in Old Bridge.
Was not aware of that.
Yeah.
What were they asking from us, to jump on a resolution with them?
Yeah, to jump on a resolution, basically expressing our concern over that and the impact it will have on our school district.
So the charter schools, and I sent you that email back that I needed more information, just because not as knowledgeable. I read a book not too long ago called The Great American Schoolhouse, which was about the Nation at Risks thing that was done back in the 70s, and the author was an advocate of charter schools. But when you finish the book, she was no longer an advocate of charter schools.
Correct.
Because the way they were set up. Who funds those as far
We do.
as? We would have to.
We
So
fund it.
in essence.
But we make no decisions
In
on what they
essence,
do.
we're
They
we're
are
building
public
another,
schools.
we have another school district, another school.
Basically, yeah. The money, what they do is when kids enroll, they find out where those kids live, and they build a school district for the amount in which they're saying their tuition is.
But there has to be some kind of criteria for a student to go there. Yeah. That's where I'm always confused.
Big
I
problem.
understand they don't follow any regulations we
No.
follow, right?
No.
So they don't.
No.
As
And
far
they
as
use
special
your
needs
funds,
students, and
but
they don't have to.
you have no choice other than just to pay them, and
Right.
they do what they
But
want.
the original rationale when charter schools came about decades ago was to accommodate students that can't be educated in a normal school setting. That was their intention, and that turned out to be schools where they skim the top of the student base off. They don't deal with the same percentage of special need kids, and then they say, look, we're doing better than the public schools, so.
Well, and then they can take these kids in, but if those kids aren't performing well,
They
they
throw
can
'em
throw
out.
them out.
You get 'em
And
back.
they have to go back to the public school district, which is not fair to those children either.
Do they have to test into it?
In some cases, they do. It's all determined based upon, whatever their bylaws are.
And that was also part of the experiment, was to basically field test and do different things in these charter schools that could hopefully come back to public school.
Well, if-
But what we're left with are schools that don't have the regulations that public schools have, and no one has sought to deregulate the public schools based upon those best practices.
Well, if there's anything New Jersey School Board Association should be out there in the forefront is this issue. And what is their policy as far as charter schools? Do they have any?
Well, charter schools, believe it or not, actually receive services from the New Jersey School Boards Association.
Well, that answers my
So,
question.
But again,
They have to be members?
They should be authorized by yes, they have to be members, but they should be authorized by the local Board of
So
Education.
a charter school and a school district will fall under the authority of the superintendent of the public school system?
The charter school will have its own local board, who would in turn be a member of NJSBA.
And who's the superintendent of that?
They have their own CEO. They would hire a
And we
separate
fund,
CEO.
and we fund it.
You
Public tax, yeah.
You fund those tuitions,
The,
yeah.
the tax dollars that we would be getting from the government, the federal and state government, would be going now to the charter school.
Correct.
If one of our students goes to a charter school, are they entitled to our activities here? Sports and stuff like that, like if you went to a,
No.
okay.
Those
It's
are
not like a
decisions-
child that goes to a private out-of-district school.
Those
No.
decisions have to be made when you place a child there.
Well, but I'm saying in another,
Yeah.
No.
you know what I'm talking about.
Now, if other districts are passing, I didn't see the resolution that you're
I didn't
referring
either. It
to,
was just
but
a-
if we could get a copy of that, I'd like to
They
consider
haven't
adopting
produced the
that.
resolution. All they were asking is who would be in support of developing one.
Okay, a co-signing with them.
Yeah, well, we would put it on one of our agendas
Right.
and ask you to approve that.
And where do they want to send it to?
I believe they want to send it to the Department of Education.
Department.
Yeah, but the number of charter schools are already up in the state, I don't see what good that's going to do. I mean,
And
that-
as Mr. Sayak said, based upon the current political climate, it's probably going to increase.
Massachusetts had a referendum to increase the cap on charter schools. They actually had a cap on the number of charter schools that could exist within the state. And I forgot that they wanted to raise it a lot by thousands of schools. And they put it out for public referendum. The public actually voted it down significantly.
So the public school system actually pays the tuition of all the students that we would send there?
Yeah. That's right.
And the transportation of them, and the curriculum?
I don't believe the transportation. I've never received a bill for transportation for a charter
I'd
school
have to
student.
check, I'm not sure.
Yeah, not positive, but I don't believe it covers transportation.
All right, well, I guess that's a conversation when we...
And if you don't mind, I have one more.
Sure, absolutely.
In the spirit of a presentation that we had back in September where Ms. Secola presented to you some outcome information, graduate outcome information, and I know that you expressed a lot of interest in the fact that since a lot of our students were staying in state, particularly going to Rutgers University, Dr. Shediak and Ms. Secola reached out to Barbara Loftus, who is in the administration, the student admission office, and she would actually like to come out and do a presentation for you, if you would like that.
Yes, that's in line with, Goal 4.
Goal 4.
And she's a Sayreville resident.
Oh, okay.
So if it's okay with you, I'd like to add her as a presentation on December 6th.
Speaking of goals, where are we with the other ones? I know Goal 4 has been happening. Mr. Sayak, do you...
Well, no, I mean, the committees are out on their own, so this isn't a Mr. Sayak. This is the other two committees.
Okay. Do we have a deadline? Do we have, who's the other committee chairs?
There are no chairs in the committees.
Okay.
And that's by design, because everyone has an equal voice, the committee's got to get together.
Okay, so
The
can I
Morale
just throw this...
Committee is waiting on our meeting with the Ed Council, so we'll come back with something from
Okay,
that,
because
I'm
that's
sure.
related, okay. And what's the other committee doing? Who's that?
I'm with you guys.
Which one did you come from, Lucy, when I got traded?
Morale.
You got traded.
What's the third one?
Was there a price
Kevin?
in it?
I don't know if I got
Payroll
traded to a
committees.
committee or for a bag of balls.
Kevin will tell you.
Listen, I don't know if no, I did not bring the other
I'm on
committee goal.
5.
Okay. Well, we'll revisit this
Kevin,
next
what
meeting.
number were you? You were
It
4,
was-
right, Kevin?
Yes.
I'm 5.
Me, Tom, and John must be 5 then.
Yeah.
So nothing has happened with Goal 5, since you can't remember what Goal 5 is. So what I can do is I can resend out what Goal 5 is. We know what the morale goal is.
There's 3.
The reason I mention this is because, we kind of joke about it, but from my perspective, being on the Goal 4 committee, really opened up our eyes to a lot of the things, and Ice Team is one of them. And I think once you see the presentation, I mean, I think it was worthwhile, and in the tour that we went over in the summer, Ms. Bacco and Ms. Esposito and myself, it was pretty interesting. We never got to that point if we didn't start that discussion.
Correct.
So I'm excited because this is the first time in about 12 years, we're actually spending a lot of time talking about education. So it's really exciting, so. Okay.
And that's the point too. I mean, once all these committees get going, what I envision would be Dr. Labby's superintendent's report basically being a look, do you have any questions on the superintendent's report? And then the rest of the meeting is spent us discussing with one another the outcomes of each one of our goals.
Right. Okay. Good discussion.
Can I also add that the Middlesex County School Boards Association did a training session on transgender and nonconforming students, and I have 2 pieces of literature here. One is the Highland Park policy, which I think we should look at, and the other was the slideshow that they did. It was very informative. So I'm going to get it to Erin and have copies made for everybody for the next meeting.
I'll run it by Dr. Shediak, too. and find
Yeah.
out what,
I'll show Erin.
yeah.
But it's just general information.
Yeah, we've got ours. I mean, I'd be interested to see how theirs compares to.
There's an interesting piece in here about transitioning the student, because I know Tom had a question about, you just show up one day and say, I want to use the other bathroom. No, it doesn't work that way. It's a whole process that's gone through in the school, with kids, with programs helping them, and there was actually a woman there whose brother transgendered, and she gave us a whole different perspective. It's not what you think. The person was timid, the person was frightened, and you see it from a whole other viewpoint when you hear someone discuss how someone in their family went through it, so I just thought it was interesting. And the woman from Highland Park was there. They, I believe, were one of the first ones to adopt, and she said they had all kinds of news media there, And it became like, they were the forerunners of adopting the policy, and they really went into it and set up a good system for the kids so that they can get help within the school.
All right, pass it off. We'll
And we're going to have a policy meeting on Tuesday. If you can get that to us, we'll
Yes,
take a look and see how it fits in.
Okay. Anything else before I open up to the public? Seeing none, I'd like to open up to the public for any business may come before this board. Anybody have any questions, comments, anything that falls in the purview of the Board of Education? Mr. Vogel, where is everybody? Sorry to wake you up. Sorry to start. Anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am, come on up. Come up, state your name and address, please.
Is this hot?
Yes, just so we
My name
hear.
is Sherry Hummel, and my daughter is a teacher in Miss Remight's third grade class. And I'm here to advocate for her, not for myself. I'm in a unique position because this happened to my daughter last year in second grade. We moved here from Dallas and in June, and second grade was a disaster, to say the least. When the children got back from winter break, their teacher was replaced because he retired mid-season, or not mid-season, mid-school year. And my daughter went from being on the AB honor roll to barely passing some of her classes because the children were just not able to get on board with a new teacher, with a new routine, with new rules, with new everything. And I see this happening again to my daughter for 2 years in a row. I saw several students transfer out of her class last year because their children are going down the same road. Unfortunately for me, I didn't speak up sooner, and I saw my daughter just completely go from a different person. And I am very concerned that the same thing is going to happen. I've had several conversations with Ms. Remite because my daughter is still suffering the repercussions of the replacement that she had. And I just kind of want to know when they're going to announce a replacement. I would prefer that the teacher that has been in the classroom with my daughter all year long, Ms. Thadani, take her place. It's not up to me who's going to be hired. But if a new teacher that is not Ms. Thadani is going to be replaced in the class, would that teacher be able to be in place before winter break and maybe observe their routine and everything that the children have come to know?
Dr. Ladden?
That's my question.
The answer to the first question is yes. On this agenda, we actually asked the board to approve her replacement. And the answer to your second question is we often do that. The particular person that we're asking, we asked the board and the board approved to replace her is actually doing a long-term replacement position right now in the district. But we have certainly discussed the possibility of providing another substitute in that classroom, toward the end of December, so that she can go out and visit the classroom and get adjusted to the routines and the systems that Mrs. Remite has established.
Okay.
And I do want to say, I apologize for what occurred last year. I know that you probably discussed this with Dr. Aguilis.
We just moved here in June. My daughter is brand new to the school.
Oh, so this happened in Texas?
This happened in Dallas,
oh,
yes.
Well, I don't apologize for that.
No, this
But I
Dallas.
am sorry that happened to your daughter in Texas.
I was honestly shell-shocked when I heard the news because the children came back from winter break and it was someone new, and it was, I'm not going to say that obviously the teacher was qualified because they hired her, but it was a disaster.
Well, and I know your daughter's going to love, no one's going to be able to replace Mrs. Remite. She was amazing. But I know that she's going to love Miss Burns, who is replacing her.
Okay, so you have a replacement?
Yeah, we recommended her to the board on this agenda, so she is now approved. So that's why I'm saying that we'll try to get her over there for at least several days before the kids come back from the winter break.
Okay, I mean, I think that might help the transition a little, but it's a very rough transition.
But she's outstanding, and I know the kids are going to love her.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have a question before.
Okay, let me close the public.
I know, I just want to.
At this time, I'll just close the public portion. Yes, Mrs. Beck.
It just spurred when she brought this up, we got an email from another parent that said that nobody responded to her. We had gotten an email before.
Yeah, I'd like
I
to
know
hear
we
that.
had
Yeah, we
always
got that this
deferred that to the
afternoon. Yeah,
board
I-
president would reply, but
thought-
I didn't see a reply. Do we get copied on every reply?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
because, so did
That
someone
email that you're talking
reply?
about, I saw this afternoon, about
Right, so-
3:30.
Oh, well,
Yes.
I would, yeah,
But did
I
somebody-
haven't had a chance
Yeah,
to respond to
I forwarded it to you,
that.
and I asked you to respond to it.
Right.
Yeah, usually.
No, but this was a follow-up to a
Yeah.
previous.
Yeah,
Did
I know.
anybody reply?
Mr.
to our
McEnroe did.
previous-
Yes,
And I have responded.
Mr. McEnroe did
He
respond.
replied all.
I sent to everybody, yeah.
Okay, because she said that she didn't get an answer.
Well,
I don't know.
she.
I think she's looking for more
She's looking for another answer.
specificity.
She's looking-
Yeah,
yes.
she's looking for more specificity than was
The answer to the
provided.
question is, and Mrs. Backel brings up a good point, and now that you mentioned that, when emails come like that to all of us, I will grab it, and any response that I make or I forward to Dr. Labby, you will see that response, so you know that it's taken. Now, it may take a day or two, because sometimes the questions need to do a little research or something to that effect. But yes, the answer always was, if you don't, then just email me, and I will forward it to you, because it's possible that I left your email address.
Right, but I
off.
guess if you forward it to Dr. Labby and you reply, will you send us the
Yes,
reply so we know
well, he
she
CCs
got an
me, and I'll either
answer?
forward it off.
And in this particular case, this is a parent that has already received a response from me.
Right, she wasn't
This is a
happy with it.
case in which the parent is moving above me to you. So she does not want to hear from me, she wants to hear from you.
Right.
Okay, so you're going to respond?
You will get her, you will
Okay.
see a response from either myself, Dr. Labby, or both of us. But I don't know if it's going to satisfy the concern, but we'll give it a go. So, all right, anything else? If not, I'll accept the motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Okay, our next meeting
Second
is
motion.
December 6th.
Sixth.